Highlands, dusk. Arabella sat on a moss-covered rock near the water's edge, River beside her. The loch shimmered untouched except for a lone bird gliding low over the surface. They hadn't spoken in 20 minutes. It wasn't. Silence it was stitching. He finally said, "You stopped painting." She looked at him. "You knew." River gave a broken smile. "I always knew when your soul went quiet." Her hands were clasped tightly on her lap. "My soul hasn't been quiet. It's been screaming for years." He looked away. "I know what I cost you." "You don't," she said, voice flat. "You cost me faith." River exhaled, his shoulders hunched. "The night I left, they said if I didn't disappear, they'd kill me or you. Your father made sure I understood." Her gaze stayed on the loch. "So you vanished." He nodded. "It was the only way to keep you alive." Arabella turned to him. "And Ashton? What do you know about him?" River's expression darkened. "He's not who you think he is." "No," she whispered. "He's exactly who I think he is. That's the problem." River frowned. She turned, looking at him fully now. "He's loyal, ruthless, haunted, and I think he might actually love me." River's jaw clenched. "And you?" Her reply was soft. "I don't know. Not yet." A silence opened again. River said quietly, "You still have the right to hate me." She reached into her coat, pulled out the journal, and held it out. "You said you faked the feelings. But you kept writing after Prague, even after you ran." He looked down. "I never meant to love you, but I did." "Do?" Her eyes welled. "Then don't disappear again. Not until we finish this." London night. Ashton stood in the Langley Estates underground archive. Carver beside him, flashlight beams slicing across rows of dust-covered boxes. He opened one labeled Halebrook. Holdings Prague 2008-2010. Inside photos, receipts, memos, and at the bottom, a memory card, unmarked, unlabeled. Carver handed it over. Ashton plugged it into the laptop. A video began. Surveillance footage, Ashton, barely 19, bar fight, blood, panic. But then Edward Halebrook, entering the frame from the alley, watching, smiling. "Jesus," Carver whispered. "Orchestrated the whole thing." Ashton's face hardened. "He baited me. Let me fall. 'Kay? Then pulled me out so I'd owe him." Carver crossed his arms. "What now?" Ashton stared at the screen. "Then we end it." Meanwhile, a darkened manor miles from the Langley estate, a figure sat at a piano, playing a quiet waltz in minor, hands gnarled, precise. A butler approached. "Sir, she's in the Highlands with Maddox." Edward Halebrook didn't stop playing. "Let them have their reunion," he said. "It's the beginning of the end." The butler hesitated, and Langley. Edward's fingers pressed harder. The note bent slightly. "I made him. I can unmake him. Highlands." 2 days later. Arabella stood at the foot of the hills, wind tangling her hair, journal in hand. River handed her a folded map. "Marked with a red X. This," he said, "is the last place your father's fixer met with someone. Hidden cabin. Off-grid. They said something was buried there." Arabella met his eyes. "You're not coming with me?" He shook his head. "If I go, they'll know. But I'll circle back in 24 hours. She nodded. "If I'm not back, I'll come for you." She turned, walked up the hill. Toward the truth. Toward the last page of a story she never agreed to be in but now refused to leave unwritten. Back in London, Ashton boarded a jet. Alone. Destination, Scotland. He didn't care if she hated him. He just wanted her alive and Edward. Edward had already sent a second message. No note. This time, just a third wedding photo. But this one was burned. Arabella's side gone. Just Ashton remained. Ashes in his hands. Highlands just past dawn. The trail was narrow, overgrown. Brambles tugged at Arabella's sleeves as she moved uphill, mist curling like ghosts between. The trees, Every crunch beneath her boots echoed. Somewhere behind her, the lock shimmered quiet and far. But up here only, the birds knew her name. She reached the cabin. It was barely more than a ruin. Stone walls sunk with moss. Roof half collapsed. But the door stood shut, waiting. She stepped forward, heart in her throat. A single boot print in the mud fresh. Not Rivers. Too large. Too recent. She drew in a breath. Pushed open the door. Inside. Dim light, dust, and something else a scent. Smoke, oil, old leather. Then her eyes adjusted. A single desk. And on a DAP box sealed. Locked engraved with the initials E.H. Arabella's. Fingers shook as she lifted it. Beneath, a false drawer slid open, revealing a phone, dead burner style, a USB, unlabeled, and a letter. Typewritten umbrella. If you're reading this, then the line's been crossed. You want the truth? Fine. I never meant for you to find it like this. But, Ashton, he wasn't just a debt. He was a test. You were never supposed to love him. You were supposed to learn, to rule, to rise. But now you'll have to choose between what you were born to be on, what you've become. Good luck, -E.H. She dropped the page, chest heaving. Outside, the unmistakable snap of a twig. Arabella spun. A shadow moved in the trees. Someone watching, she ran. Not down the path but through the woods. Meanwhile, Langley, Jet. In airspace, Ashton stared at the cracked phone in his hand. Another message had arrived mid-flight. No number, no sender, just 5 words. She's not safe. Move fast. Carver's voice crackled over the comm. Sir, we intercepted chatter. Highlands Estate flagged. Someone's already out there. Ashton stood. How many? Too many. He cursed under his breath. Tell the pilot divert. Closest field. I'm not letting them touch her. Highlands, 7:43 a.m. Arabella burst from the trees, lungs burning. The path curved. The lock reappeared closer now. So, were they? 2 men? Black coats? No insignias? She turned, sprinting toward the rocks. One shouted. Crack gunshot. She ducked, scrambled, fell, and then headlights. A black SUV swerved onto the path, tires slicing through the mist. River, he flung the passenger door open. Get in. She dove in. The vehicle fishtailed, tore away down the slope. Behind them, the men shouted too far now. Arabella was shaking, clutching the box. I got it, she whispered. Whatever was in that cabin, he didn't want us to. See it? River's face was white. Someone else is pulling strings now. Your father may not even be in charge anymore. Her eyes narrowed. Then who is? He looked at her. The real architect. The one who used Edward like a pawn. Meanwhile, London. Edward Helbrook stood in his private gallery, staring at a blank canvas. A woman stepped into the room. Dark blazer. Red lips. You played your hand too soon, she said. Edward didn't look at her. They were getting close. She walked past him, heels echoing like a metronome. They were always going to find each other, she said. Love ruins every strategy. He finally turned. She's still my daughter. No, the woman said coolly. She was never yours. You just held the leash. She paused, smiled slightly. Now we cut it. Elsewhere, Ashton landed. 8:22 a.m. He ran through the field. Carver close behind, tracking her now she's near the lock. Then he saw the SUV. River behind the wheel, Arabella climbing out, box clutched. To her chest, their eyes locked, relief, fury, love. All at once, he didn't speak. Just walked to her, she held out the box. I found it. And I'm not running anymore. Ashton looked at her, then at River. Good, he said quietly, because neither am I Nightfell. In a private room by the lock. The USB loaded into. River's old laptop. Arabella, Ashton, and River sat together, unwilling allies. Unfinished lovers. Unlikely survivors. The screen blinked once. Loaded dot folder. Project Bellatrix. Access code Halebrook line. Arabella typed it. The screen flickered. A file opened. Surveillance. Logs. Meetings. Financials. Dozens of names and one familiar face. The woman in red. Unknown name. Unknown file origin. Last known tag. Langley Holdings, co-founder, deceased. Arabella's blood went cold. She's not dead, she whispered. She's watching us. Ashton's face went still, because she was never meant to die, River said. And she may be the one pulling every string. Arabella sat back. The girl who was sold. The woman who was married. Now the storm between two men. Hunted by ghosts, armed with truth, and just beginning to realize this war had never been about love. It was about power. And she was the crown. Chapter Bellatrix Rising. The room buzzed with low static as the USB decrypted more files line after line of cold. Clinical reports. Ashton leaned over the screen, scanning each name. River paced behind him, jaw clenched. Arabella sat still. The only motion in her, the rapid blink of her eyes and the tightening. Grip on the box still in her lap. Then a new folder appeared. Subject file, AHB X01, Bellatrix Candidatura. Bella froze. Ashton whispered, no. River stopped pacing. She clicked the file, a dossier opened. Subject name, Arabella Halebrook Dobb. May 5th, 1996 parental lineage. Edward Halebrook, plus redacted genetic markers. Exceptional cognitive processing. High. Emotional intelligence, photogenic recall control methods, psychological conditioning, trust dislocation. Controlled relational pairings. Current status, activated. Marital merger, successful. Psychological shift in progress. A video link embedded at the bottom. PLAY. Bellatrix Protocol Initiation, Phase 3. Arabella stared. Lips parted. What is this? Ashton sank into the seat beside her, pale. It's not just surveillance. I didn't just use you, River finished grimly. They built you. She clicked play. The screen flickered. A sterile white room. Two-way mirror. A girl her, maybe age 14, sat at a table, silent. Eyes haunted. Her reflection barely moved. Behind the glass, Edward stood beside the red-lipped woman. Her voice crackled through the old feed. She's responding to the dislocation perfectly. No attachment to peers. Strong aversion to authority. She's ready for stage 2. Edward and the boy. Woman. Langley is volatile but predictable. Love will leash him. Arabella slammed the laptop shut. Her heart galloped against her ribs. No. She stood up, staggering back, breath shallow. They planned everything, she choked. Even me. Even you. Ashton didn't move. His eyes were locked on the shut laptop, hands trembling. I never had a choice. She whispered. River's voice was soft. You do now. But Arabella was already moving. She grabbed the USB and turned to the door. Where are you going? Ashton stood. To end this, she said. If they created me, then I'll burn what they made. Meanwhile, London Inc., a high-rise lined with one-way glass and black marble. The red-lipped woman, the architect, watched the screen. Her voice coiled like silk. She's seen the files. A man in shadows replied, and Langley. Fracturing. She turned. Good. Push harder. A second screen lit up. A map of Prague. A blinking tracker dot and a single word pulsing beneath Arabella's name. Awakening. Highlands. The safe house. Arabella returned hours later. The USB gone. Ashton sat at the window, jaw bruised from a fight with himself. River stood near the fire, arms folded. She dropped something onto the table between them, an encrypted ID badge. Bellatrix HQ, Zurich. I found where the files came from, she said. The architect isn't just watching, she's building more of me. River looked up, eyes narrowing. Clones. Worse, controlled legacies. Ashton looked at her. You said you wanted to burn it. She nodded. We go to Zurich. He stood. Then we burn the archive. River exhaled. You're both insane. Arabella met his gaze. Maybe. But I'm done being their pawn. A pause. Then Riverside reached for his coat. Fine, but we do it my way. Quiet, fast, ruthless. Acton stepped closer to Arabella. You sure you want both of us on this? Her voice was ice. No, but I need both of you. Zurich. 2 days later, they arrived beneath the cover of fog. A silent descent. One plane, 3 identities, and a fire waiting to be lit. The Bellatrix compound was housed beneath an art foundation. Polished floors, halls lined with mirrors, staff that didn't blink. Below, miles of tunnels, archives, protocol labs, and on level -3, the initiation chamber where dossiers like Arabella's were written. They broke in just after midnight. Arabella led her hand on Ashton's River, covering their backs. Each door opened like a memory. Each file drawer whispered, "You are not your own." Then glass doors, a corridor, the final vault. Arabella swiped the stolen badge. It blinked once. Access granted. The doors hissed open. Inside, rows of cryo chambers, flickering lights. Inside each young woman, identical features. Versions of her slightly altered, sleeping controlled. She stepped inside. The horror of it, tightening her throat. No, Ashton said softly. No more of this, River whispered. They were going to replace you. Arabella didn't cry. She moved like judgment. She reached for the system core. Set the timer. 15 minutes. Let's go, she said. But as they turned to leave, the lights cut. A voice filled the chamber. The architect. You thought ending the archive would free you. You're still mine, Arabella. Even love won't save you from what you are. Arabella stepped toward the center of the room, stared up at the camera, and whispered, Then watch me choose. She slammed the emergency override. The pods hissed. The system shorted. All around them, faces stirred. Woke, the clones opened there. Eyes. Confused. Free. The architect screamed through the speakers, cut off in static. Arabella turned back to Ashton and River Tom. Behind them, glass cracked. Alarms shrieked. And the army built in her image awoke, not for war, but for truth. Chapter: The Ones. Who remembers smoke curled through the broken corridors of the Zurich facility? Arabella didn't look back. She led past the flickering security lights. Fast. The walls where her name had once been a project code. Past the sterile future Edward Halebrook had once tried to engineer. Ashton ran beside her, blood on his sleeve from a glass shard. River flanked the rear, gun low, eyes sharp. Behind them, the clones, the Bellatrix daughters, followed. Quiet, wide-eyed, barefoot in paper gowns. 32 of them, all awake. All watching Arabella like she was some fallen star finally rising. They reached the tunnel hatch. River slammed his fist against the manual override. 3 minutes, maybe less, before this place collapses. Arabella turned, her voice steady. Then we take them with us. River blinked. Take them where? As far from this as possible. Ashton spoke low. If we leave them here, they'll be hunted. A clone stepped forward, number 13, according to the code on her collar. Her voice shook. They called you Alpha. Said you failed. But you don't look like a failure. Arabella crouched before her. I broke the lie. Clone 13 looked behind her. Will you help us do the same? Arabella stood, jaw tight. We're not experiments anymore. We're evidence. Then an explosion rocked the far wing. The sirens howled louder. Emergency locks slammed. River cursed. We go now. Above ground, 3:47 a.m. The Art Foundation burned behind them. The fire ate its secrets clean. Arabella, Ashton, River. And 32 daughters of Bellatrix stood in the frost-glittered hills of Zurich, cloaked in silence, an unmarked van pulled into view, driven by Carver, who blinked once at the strange army waiting. "I don't suppose I want to know," he muttered, opening the back. "Get in." London, 2 days later, the Langley estate had been locked down tighter than a fortress. Inside, Arabella watched the Bellatrix girls sleep. Clean clothes. Real beds. Warmth. She hadn't slept since Zurich. Ashton stood beside her. "They're starting to remember." Arabella nodded. "I don't know how to help them. I don't even know who I was before this." "You were the one who walked back into the fire," he said softly. "And they'll follow you because of that." She turned. "Why did you follow me?" He met her gaze. "Because I stopped trying to own you the day I realized I'd never be worthy of you. I'm just trying to stand beside you now." She could answer. Her phone lit up. Message from River Maddox. "I found her." She blinked. Another message. "The woman from the files. The architect. She's alive. Disappeared from Zurich. She's here. In London." Her breath hitched. Ashton saw her. Expression. "What is it?" Arabella's voice was a whisper. "She's not finished." Elsewhere in London, underground bunker. The architect removed her gloves. Blood under her nails. A twisted smile on her lips. A monitor blinked behind her. Surveillance. Of the Langley estate. The dark screen split between Arabella and each clone sleeping. "Let them rest," she whispered. "We'll wake them when it's time." Another monitor showed River. At a pub. Watching. Waiting. A soft voice behind her. "They're coming for you." She turned slowly. Edward Halebrook stepped out of the shadows. "I'd hoped the fire killed you." She said, "You made a mistake letting her live." The architect smirked. "Arabella, not my mistake. She's my legacy," he scoffed. "She's not yours anymore." The architect's eyes gleamed. "Then I suppose it's time I reclaim her." Langley estate that night. Arabella found Ashton in the greenhouse. She stepped beside him. "They're watching us." He nodded. "Then let them." She looked up through the glass roof stars above, unblinking. "I want to end this," she said. "No more ghosts. No more fathers. No more monsters." Ashton touched her hand. "Then let's finish it." Arabella turned to the window, where the Bellatrix girls watched her reflection like a beacon. Langley estate, 4:32 a.m. The frost hadn't yet melted. Arabella stood in the doorway of the west corridor, arms crossed, bare feet pressed to marble. Across the hallway, the Bellatrix daughters, some sitting, some sleeping, some simply watching, seemed almost spectral, like reflections in a hall of broken glass. But they weren't fragile. They were waiting for her. Ashton approached silently, coat in his arms. "You'll freeze," he said. "I don't feel it," Arabella replied. "Not anymore." He draped the coat around her shoulders anyway. She didn't shrug it off. Instead, she asked, "What would you do if you knew the people who made you wanted you gone the moment you outlived your usefulness?" His voice was steady. "I'd outlive them louder." She glanced at him, something sharp and soft in her eyes. "I think I need to disappear for a while." He stiffened. "Alone." "No," she said. "With them. If the architect is alive, if she's building something Aguna, I need to know where. And I need to end it. You'll be hunted. I already am." He didn't try to argue. He just nodded once. "I'll cover your trail." Arabella turned to him, voice quieter. "You're not coming?" Ashton's gaze flicked toward the surveillance files stacked on the table. "I need to stay. There are people inside Parliament, inside Halebrook's old syndicate. If I follow you, we lose our last leverage." Arabella studied him. "You're choosing to fight in the light." "And you're choosing the shadow," he said. "Just promise me you come back." She didn't promise, but she did step closer, fingers grazing his jaw. And then she kissed him, not sweet, not soft, acclaiming when they broke apart. She murmured, "If I die, tell the world I lived on my terms." "You won't die," he said. "Fiercely, I might," she admitted. "But at least this time, it'll be for the truth." London Underground 2:48 hours later, rain hammered the streets above. Arabella moved like smoke between old tunnels, Bellatrix's daughters flanking her, now dressed in street clothes, clean, watchful. She had renamed them No More Numbers, Hope, Mara, Sloan, Jin, 30-2 new names. They moved as a single organism now, silent and swift. River had gone ahead, tracing signals, scanning whispers from the dark web. Messages from the architect had begun surfacing encrypted strings tucked in biotech forums, academic research forums, even artwork. Arabella paused near an old phone booth. Her burner buzzed. River, found it. Dockside Lab. Registered under Orpheus Diagnostics, she replied. Arabella, assemble. River already have. Ashton sent backup. Carver too. She slipped the phone into her pocket. From the shadows, Jin whispered, What do we do when we find her? Arabella turned, the storm flashing across her cheekbones like war paint. We end her work. And if she won't stop? Arabella's voice was quiet and fatal. Then we burn the machine. Dockside Lab, 3:13 a.m. Arabella stepped through. The glass doors first. River, armed, covered her 6. The Bellatrix daughters flanked the corridors. It was surgical quiet, efficient, then laughter, from the end of the hallway, distorted through speakers. You've come home, said the architect's voice. Arabella's spine stiffened. You stole my name, my DNA, my entire life. Didn't. Come home. I came to bury you. A hiss. Then silence. Then doors unlocking one by one. They stepped through them room by room until they reached the core. And there, behind a biometric wall, stood the architect, pale, eerie, older now. Her right eye cybernetic, scalpel still tucked into her coat like a pen. You brought them, she said, looking past Arabella. The others, my daughters. They're mine, Arabella replied coldly, and they are not yours anymore. The architect smiled. You're still so dramatic. Like your mother. Arabella flinched. River stepped forward. No more games. Tell her what Edward did, what you did. But the architect only leaned closer to the glass and whispered, She's not Edward's daughter, Arabella. Froze. The air stopped moving. River whispered, What? The architect's smile widened. She was the first, the original. A hybrid from a different line entirely. Edward didn't create her. He found her. Arabella stepped forward, trembling. Found me where? In the ash of another experiment, the architect said. One that worked too well. Arabella's vision blurred. The world spun, but her voice when it came was cold steel. I don't care where I came from. I know where I'm going. She reached into her jacket and pulled a flash drive. River inserted it into the control panel. The screens around the lab lit up. Every file. Every name. Every test. Live being streamed straight to investigative reporters, human rights agencies, international courts. Arabella looked back at the architect one last time. You built monsters, she said. But you forgot we learn. Then she stepped away. Outside, she pressed a button. Charges planted along the lower levels. Detonated. The lab collapsed in fire and light. No. One screamed. 3 weeks later, the Highlands. The morning was quiet. Arabella stood beneath the pines, coat tugged tight, the air rich with pine and rain. River approached, a letter in his hand. She took it, fingers trembling. Inside, in his familiar sharp handwriting, you came back alive. That's enough. But when you're ready, so am I. No contracts, no mergers. It's just us. I'll wait. But don't take too long. This world's already missing too much of your fire. She smiled. And for the first time in weeks, she'll let herself cry. Not from grief, but from release, behind her. The Bellatrix girls, now just girls, laughed over tea. Barefoot in the heather, building something new, Arabella folded the letter, slipped it into her coat, then whispered into the wind, We survived the story they wrote. And walked back into the sun to begin writing her own. 3 months later, Edinburgh. Midnight train kissed the glass of the Langley townhouse windows. In slow, erratic taps, Arabella stood by the unlit fireplace in Ashton's private study, the envelope still unopened in her hand. She had returned without announcement. No press, no entourage, no Bellatrix daughters in formation. Just her. Boots muddy. Hair wild. Heart quieter. She hadn't expected him to be there, but he was. On the armchair, asleep. Head tilted back. A teat. Half off. As though he'd waited up every night since she left. Arabella didn't speak. She knelt by the fire and lit it slowly. One match. A flare of orange. The room glowed warm. Ashton stirred Dot, then blinked. She didn't look at him. "Don't say anything yet," she said softly. He didn't. I needed to disappear. And I did, she continued, her voice like smoke. But I didn't forget. Ashton sat up slowly. His eyes hadn't left her. Arabella turned now, slowly, and met his gaze. No more defenses. No more strategy, only truth. "I thought I was born for war," she said. "But I think I was born for rebuilding after it." He stood, crossed the room, stopped inches from her. "You didn't come back for rebuilding," he said quietly. "No," she admitted. "I came back for us." His jaw clenched. Oh. She saw it again, that old flicker of restraint, warring with emotion. Then he stepped forward. One hand on her waist, the other on her. Neck Dot and kissed her. This time not like it was goodbye, but like it. Was home Dot when they pulled apart? Arabella rested her forehead against his. "There are still enemies. There always will be," Ashton murmured. "But now we're not pretending anymore," she said. He nodded. No more contracts. More politics. "No more halfway love," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "Then let's burn the old world down together." Arabella's smile returned, Dot fierce, Dot tender, Dot dangerous. "Let's plant something better in the ashes." Langley, Global HQ. 2 weeks later, the press conference was standing room only. Arabella walked in first. A black tailored suit. No jewelry. No apology. Ashton followed, files in hand. Behind them, a line of young women Bellatrix no longer each. Now a partner in the Langley Halebrook Justice Initiative. Arabella stepped to the microphone. The room went silent. "I was engineered too. Be a pawn," she began. "But I'm choosing to be a reckoning." Flashes. Gasps. Double quotes. As of today, Langley Global is releasing every classified document associated with Project Bellatrix, Orpheus Diagnostics, and all private contracts signed under Edward Halebrooks. Holdings between 2002 and 2022. Murmurs turned to thunder. No more secrets. No more silence. And no more men profiting from women they were too afraid to empower. Ashton stood behind her now, silent support. "And if you think this is just another PR stunt," she said, voice sharpening, "you'll soon find out how. Dangerous women become when they are no longer afraid of the truth." Langley Estate. That night the fire crackled low. Arabella sat on the edge of the windowsill in the study, legs pulled up, a glass of untouched scotch in her hand. She stared out at the dark garden-long hedgerows, still wet with storm. Thunder had passed hours ago, but some storms lingered inside. Ashton entered quietly, his shirt sleeves rolled, 2 mugs of tea in hand. No suit, no mask. It's just the man. He set one mug beside her and didn't speak until she took it. She did, fingers grazing his without flinching. "I watched you today," he said finally. She didn't look at him, not like a CEO, not like a man who made a mistake. "Just watched you. And," her voice was low, "you didn't just burn the house down." His voice was soft. "You built a new one before the ashes even cooled." Arabella turned, now meeting his eyes. "I couldn't wait." "I know," he said, "and I'm not asking you to." Silence folded between them again, but it wasn't sharp. Just soft with the weight of everything unsaid. She sipped her tea. He sat beside her. Their knees touched. "I've been thinking about the orchard," she said. He blinked. "The one on the north end." She nodded. "It's overgrown. Forgotten. You could hide a revolution in that soil." He tilted his head, a small smirk tugging his mouth. "Planning one." Arabella's eyes gleamed. "Always." A pause. Then. "Softer, I want to turn it into a trust. For girls like Bellatrix. Legal aid. Education. Protection. No conditions. No contracts, just ... choice." Ashton exhaled long and quiet. "Then we'll do it." She looked at him, really looked. "You're sure?" "I'm not sure about anything anymore," he said honestly. "But I know if you ask me to plant a better world, I'll bring the shovel." Arabella laughed, sudden and genuine. She rested her head lightly against his shoulder. They sat like that for a long time, breathing, stillness. Hope. When he finally spoke again, it was almost a whisper. "Do you think we could try again?" She lifted her head, eyes questioning. "Not the contract. Not the public face. Just us. No walls. No weapons." Arabella studied him, quiet. Then she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a velvet pouch. He frowned. "What's—" She opened it. Inside, 2 gold bands. The real ones, not the publicity rings. Not the staged exchange. These were simple, honest, handmade. "I had them forged in Prague," she said. "After the fixer told me everything. After I let myself stop hating you." His voice caught. "Arabella, I didn't bring them to ask if you loved me," she said. "I brought them to say I know I do." Ashton said nothing, just took the smaller ring and slid it onto her finger. Then took her hand, turned it, kissed her palm. She trembled. "Then this time," he whispered, "we write our own vows." "Not vows," she murmured. "Terms." He raised a brow. Arabella smiled. "Term 1. No more lies." "Agreed." "Term 2. One disagreement at a time." He chuckled. "Agreed." "Term 3. She leaned in, eyes soft and fierce. "Every war ends with us choosing each other. Even in the fire." Ashton pulled her in then and kissed her like the world would rebuild itself around that promise. Because maybe, just maybe, it would, ChatGPT said. Langley Estate, 1 week later, the orchard had changed. Sunlight filtered through branches for the first time in years. The wild grass was trimmed back, the deadwood cleared. Arabella stood in boots and rolled sleeves, dirt under her nails, clipboard in hand. Talking to a group of lawyers, social workers, and a girl named Dasha 16, bruised but unbroken. Rescued just days ago from a trafficking ring with ties. Stretching back to Halebrook's silent partners. "This is just the beginning," Arabella said, voice low but certain. "You're not a case number. You're not broken. You're the storm that comes after silence." Dasha's eyes welled. She nodded. From the hill above, Ashton watched her. He hadn't seen her like this before, unstoppable, unapologetic, wholly in her fury. It made something in him kneel quietly. That night, Langley's study, Arabella was at the desk, sifting through another stack of letters when a thick envelope slid under the door. Ashton crossed the room first, picked it up, stared at the seal. Halebrook. Arabella's fingers curled around the edge of the table. He opened it. Carefully, inside, one sheet. A letter, typed, cold, precise. "Arabella, you were never supposed to find out. But I underestimated your hunger for fire. You've always been more like me than your mother ever admitted. That's your curse. And your weapon. Don't waste it on kindness. As for Ashton, keep him, break him, build him, it makes no difference. He was never the target, you were. Your move, darling." E. Beneath the letter was a key, antique, rusted, marked with the seal of a Zurich private bank. Arabella stared at it. No signature, Ashton murmured. No address. Just that. She picked it up. Something buzzed through her fingertips. Old memory, old terror, older rage. Zurich. He asked. She nodded once. He's running. But this is bait. Ashton took the key from her gently. Then we don't walk in blind. Arabella's jaw set. No, we burn the whole ledger. Zurich. 3 days later, they arrived under aliases. No staff, no press, no protection. Just them. The bank was discreet, more vault than lobby, carved in marble and gold restraint. A private room, a single lockbox. Arabella turned the key. Inside, files, videos, names, contracts. A full archive decades of bribes, traffic deals, blood-washed, Sherazade her father's signature on nearly every page. But tucked at the very bottom, a second journal. This one, not Rivers, not Edward's, hers. A replica of the one she'd kept as a teenager. Her poetry, her rage, her secrets. How did he have this? She flipped to the final page. A note, scrawled in Edward's ink. I took your words so you'd forget them, but you never did. You became them. Bravo, Belle. Now see what you'll do when the whole world reads them. The archive goes public in 7 days, unless you come to Paris. Alone. One last move. Let's end the game with grace. Arabella didn't blink. She stood slowly. Get the burner phone, she told Ashton. Arabella, I'm not asking. She looked at him, steady and wild and bright with pain. I'm ending this. He nodded once. I'm coming with you. No, she said. This time, he asked for me. He stared at her. And promise me one thing. What? Don't come back as your father's daughter. She smiled faintly. I'm not his shadow, she whispered. I'm his reckoning. Paris, 3:02 a.m., a rooftop above Rue Saint-Roch. Storm clouds. Empty streets. The city held its breath. Arabella stepped out of the elevator alone. Hair braided down her back, black coat singed tight. In one hand, the journal. In the other, the Zurich envelope, its weight like fire. Edward Halebrook waited near the rooftop's edge, leaning on a polished cane. His silver hair glinted beneath the flicker of lightning. A crystal tumbler of scotch rested beside him, untouched. You came, he said, without turning. I always do, Arabella replied. She walked toward him, slowly, steady as judgment. Do you remember this place? Edward asked. You were 16, angry? Brilliant. Just told me you wanted to be a writer instead of a debutante. I remember, she said, you laughed. I told you the world eats girls like that. She nodded, and you handed it a fork. Edward exhaled. You're here to kill me, aren't you? No, she said. I'm here to watch you. Fall. He turned then, eyes colder than the marble floors of Halebrook Manor. You think exposing this archive will bring justice? It won't bring back the girls you sold. Or the lives you shattered. Or the woman you raised to kneel. But it will burn the empire you built on our backs. Edward stared at her for a long moment. Then he smiled. I underestimated you. She stepped closer. No, you never tried to see me at all. He gestured to the envelope. Inside that archive are names, powerful ones, heads of banks, government ministers, royals. Do you think they'll let you publish it? I already did. He still. Arabella pulled out her phone. On screen. Langley Halebrook archive uploaded. 1 hour ago. Views. 6.2 million shared by @Langley Foundation, @Survivors United, @Belle Burns. You chose the wrong daughter to break. Oh, she whispered. Edward's hands trembled now. The cane slipped slightly from his grip. He tried to recover, but his breath had quickened. And River. He rasped. You think he'll forgive you? Bella's eyes sharpened. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for peace. Okay? She hesitated. Just a blink. Then. He stood beside me when you tried to make me doubt myself. He's not perfect, but he didn't flinch. Edward stared at her. The rooftop thundered with silence, and finally, you win. Arabella stepped forward, took the glass from beside him, and poured it onto the concrete. "I don't need your surrender," she said. "I already survived your war." She turned to leave. "Arabella." She paused. Edward's voice was smaller now, a ghost of its old grandeur. "Was any of it ever love?" She didn't look back. "I don't know, but I'm finally free not to care." She walked into the elevator. The doors slid shut. Edward stayed in the storm dot alone. 2 days later, Scotland. Highlands rain swept the cliffs in sweeping arcs of silver. Arabella stood beside the battered wooden fence, watching the sea crash against the rocks below. A car pulled up behind her. Footsteps slow. Familiar, she turned. River, well, older now. Beard. Rough, jacket worn, but the same fire in his eyes. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said. He smiled softly. "You said please." They stood in silence for a long moment. "Then I read the archive," he murmured. "Every page." She nodded. "I'm sorry," he added, "for what I let happen, for what I believed." "I am too," she said. "But I'm glad I know now." He took a step closer. "So, what happens next?" She looked out at the sea. "I live without either of us." She smiled. "I don't belong to anyone anymore." River nodded slowly. "I took." Her hand pressed something into it. His ring. "I don't want this back." She whispered. "I don't want you to wear it," he replied. "Just to remember that someone once loved you badly. And that you deserve better." Arabella's throat tightened. She leaned forward and kissed his cheek. "Goodbye, River." He blinked once, then smiled. "Goodbye, Belle." He walked back to the car. She didn't watch him leave. Langley. Estate 3 weeks later, Ashton stood in the greenhouse, hands deep in soil. Tending to a new grove of night-blooming jasmine, she stepped in quietly. Watched him. He didn't look up. "You left," he said simply. She moved to his side. "I had to." He finally turned. "And now?" Arabella reached into her coat and pulled out her own ring, the Langley one. She slipped it onto her finger. "I'm choosing to stay, not because I'm trapped, but because I'm free." Kay didn't smile, just pulled her into his arms. And in the hush between heartbeats, between breath and forgiveness, between what burned and what survived, they held each other, not as war, not as property, but as promise. Epilogue. 9 months later, London, the Langley Halebrook. Truth and Justice Trust opening gala, Langley Tower rooftop garden. Dusk, the skyline shimmered gold. Strings of light hung over glass tables. Dozens of guests milled about activists, survivors, journalists, even former insiders who had helped leak damning records. What once had been power's fortress now stood as a sanctuary for the silenced. Arabella stood at the edge of the rooftop, wearing midnight blue. No tiara, no armor, just purpose. Behind her, Ashton adjusted his cufflinks. Same tailored suit, same steel resolve, but the man who once wielded silence like a shield now held truth like a torch. "You ready?" he asked. Arabella turned to face him, always. The crowd hushed as they stepped forward together. Ashton took the mic first. "Some of you knew me before I knew myself. And many of you never thought I'd open the doors of Langley like this. But tonight isn't about reputation. It's about restoration." "Applause," murmured. Arabella stepped beside him. Voice calm, strong. For too long, truth was a liability in these rooms. Tonight, it becomes currency. This trust is not just an organization. It's a promise to protect whistleblowers, to fight for survivors, to make power accountable. No more shadows. This time, the applause was thunder. From the back of the crowd, River watched quietly, standing with a group from the Zurich Fund for Survivors. He didn't try to speak to Arabella, but when she caught his eye, she nodded. Not a goodbye, not regret, just peace. Across the garden, Carver hovered near the security monitors, still in plain clothes, still sharp. But now with a deeper mission, protect what mattered beyond the gates. Later. Arabella and Ashton slipped away from the noise. In the conservatory beneath the rooftop, moonlight danced across ferns and lavender. She slipped her heels off. He rolled up his sleeves. They moved together like old. "Rhythm, you ever think about what might have happened if I hadn't come back from Prague?" she asked. "I wouldn't have blamed you," Ashton said, "but I would have looked for you." "Every day," she smiled. "So would I." Their fingers brushed against the glass table. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Not velvet. Not gold, recycled paper. Inside, 2 simple bands. No diamonds. No inscription, just a note. This time, no contracts. It's just yes. She looked up, mist, in her lashes, and nodded. Yes, he slid the ring onto her finger. She slid the other onto his dot outside. The world was still burning in parts, but in that garden, there was light and truth, and something even stronger than survival beginning.